Hey, this is Chris. Hope you're doing well, and welcome to Popcorn Finance, the show where we discuss finance and about the time it takes to make a bag of popcorn. We're sitting here at the FinCon booth in Orlando, Florida, and I'm sitting across this really nice table.
That's a wonderful table.
From Darbi Masters. How are you doing, Darbi?
Well, hello. I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I wanted to talk to you today because we had a really great conversation about podcasts yesterday. And
my favorite topic of conversation.
And it feels only appropriate to talk about podcasts at Podcast Movement.
Which is wonderful.
Right. I feel like one of the problems with podcasts is discovering them because it's really hard to find a good podcast. So I wanted to talk to you about your top 3 favorite podcasts. And I'll give mine. So let's just start out. Should we go 1 to 3 or 3 to 1? I'll let you choose. You're the guest.
1 to 3.
1 to 3. Okay. All right. So, Darbi, give me your number 1 favorite podcast.
Okay. Number 1 favorite podcast is probably a lot of people's number 1. And I always have to say it because it's just so good. It's This American Life.
That's a classic.
It's so
good.
It's a classic. I know.
And so that's Ira Glass, right? He's the host.
It is Ira Glass. It's pretty much journalistic podcasting. So they tell incredible stories, and it's from different perspectives. And I think that's why I enjoy it so much, is because you get to hear from other people about what's going on.
Yeah, I like that. And it's like, and he kind of breaks it into segments. It's like, I think a 3-part episode, and they go through different stories. And so why is it your favorite podcast? Why did they get the number 1 spot?
I think because I really enjoy hearing people's stories. That's like the thing that I enjoy. So if I could do that all of my life and just hear people's stories, that's what I would do.
Okay, I like that answer. All right, my number 1. This is tough. I asked this question, and I'm like, I have no idea how to rank my 3. But I'm just going to pick this one because I really enjoy it. It is called Science Versus.
Okay, yes.
Host is Wendy Zuckerman. And she has an amazing Australian accent,
yes.
I believe. I don't want to say it's New Zealand because I believe it's Australian accent.
I am almost positive, yes.
And she just does a really great job of hosting one. She has a lot of energy. But they go and tackle all these different topics, but from a scientific perspective. So they did like sharks. Like, are they really the killers they're made out to be in the movies? They've done, what did they do? They did abortion, which was a heavy topic, but a really good topic. And I love the way they broke it down. They cover so many different topics in these very interesting and very thoughtful ways. And they have like hundreds of like citations at the end of the episode to prove that they actually did the research. So that's why that was my number 1.
Okay, that's good. That's great.
All right. Number 2, Darbi. What's up next?
Okay, number 2 would probably be Reply All.
Reply All. That is a good one. That's another good one.
So you know this one, obviously. It's all about it revolves around tech. And I'm not really a techie, but I absolutely adore the chemistry between the hosts. There is something that is so funny, engaging. Oh, I just adore it. They
do a great job. And we were talking about the episode they did on like robocalls and how they just like called the guy up who was calling them, and they went like this deep dive into like this dark industry behind all of these robocalls.
It's so great.
It is crazy, but that's a great recommendation. I love that one. Okay.
And for you?
My number 2, I think I'm going to have to go with, and I've already forgotten it, so I'm going to have to edit this part out because I don't remember what it was. My number 2 is The Indicator by NPR. Okay. And that one's because I love economics. I'm just fascinated by it. I have no idea why, but it was one of my favorite classes in college. And I love that they take a real fun spin to economics, and they do it in a short episodes. So the episodes are like 8 minutes long, and they'll do anything from, hey, let's talk about the yield curve and how bond rates are dropping, and and then they'll go, hey, let's talk about the economics behind ballpark food distribution and the merchants, things like that. So they go to all these different crazy areas, and they're so entertaining. The main hosts are Cardiff Garcia and Stacey, I think, Vanek Smith, or did I get that right? Yeah, they do a really great job of packing a lot of information in a very short period of time, and that's why I love that show. So that's my number 2.
It's a good one.
Darbi, number 3.
Okay, so number 3, and this is so surprising because when we talked about it yesterday, we bonded over it, and I was surprised that you had heard of it because it's kind of a niche podcast.
It is.
But it's called The Liturgist.
Yes.
So the reason why I love The Liturgist is because they talk about religion, philosophy, ethics, and it just, the way that they present it is so non-judgmental. It's kind of just like, hey, let's put out this information. Let's talk about it.
Yes.
And that is so appealing to me because I grew up actually in a pretty religious background. So they are like using the term deconstruction, and they're just like talking about all the things that I grew up around. And you start second guessing like, oh, why did I think that? Why was I raised that way? Why do I have that preconceived notion? And anything that challenges my way of thinking, oh, I love it.
You know what? I'm going to have to go with that as my number 3 too, because it is a really great show. And I think it's something scary to like talk about your faith and ask these really tough questions about it, but they do it in such a thoughtful way, and they really, I think, take their time and they bring people on who are like experts or even just who are dealing with the situation they're talking about. And I just love the way that they come to it with a lot of heart and compassion, and they also just leave room to ask these hard questions and not be worried about, maybe you are going to feel differently after you ask these questions, but it's important to ask these questions. So I think they do an amazing job, and I'll lock that one as my number 3 too.
It's a good one.
Well, Darbi, thank you so much for sitting here in the middle of this conference floor, taking some time out to have this random podcast conversation with me that I asked you to do.
I loved it. Thank you so much for having me.
Darbi, before we go, I want to let people have a chance if they want to maybe get some more podcast recommendations from me or just check in, see what you're doing. What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
So I do have a website. It's darbimasters.com, but they can also reach out to me and kind of see what I'm doing on Instagram, which is Darbi Masters. It's just Darbi Masters, and it's DARBI. No E, no Y.
Perfect. Great branding. You got your name locked down on all the platforms.
I know, it's nice. It's a unique name, so I can do it.
See, I can't do Chris Browning because there's like 20 million Chris Browning. So.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm the least known of all of them. So.
That is not true. I beg to differ.
Well, thank you, Darbi. I appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye.